Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Imperial Dane, with another Propagandacast for you today. A 2 versus 2 on Lorraine. Yes, Lorraine, we have not seen this match yet. It is a 2 versus 2 map, a densely urban one in fact. Not a lot that isn't urban, and what is mostly this park area, which has been quickly requisitioned in this case by the German forces, and a bit down here in some cleared out areas, but otherwise more or less buildings, more buildings, and roads and ruins. So of course we have the victory points on a fine line going down here. We have some medium yield points near the starting points and some in the upper and lower corner, otherwise no high yield, and most of the fuel points are in fact low yield, if not all. And of course, one thing to note is the central victory point, which is quite open from numerous sides, meaning it's going to be a bit hard to defend, even if you take this building, which is usually seized and garrisoned with heavy machine guns. It does have one weak spot, this side of the wall. Move your troops in here and this won't be able to do much. The northern and southern sides being easier to defend, less roads to worry about, and more useful buildings able to provide covering fire from the single victory point and entryways. Same applies down here, for example, this building able to provide good covering fire from its windows, so keep that in mind. And many players are known to just bunker down and just try to play this defensively, which isn't always fun and in fact can get a bit troublesome. But yes, let's not get too naughty. Let's get to the players we have here. pontan1ke, or pontan1ke, not entirely sure how he wants that pronounced, but American 1st Infantry Division, Able Company, and for his comrade we have Smallfrizl, Baker Company, 1st Infantry Division as well. And for the Wehrmacht we have funkymonkey, Hauptmann Funky, Funkmann, perhaps, yes, who is here with the 80th Infantry Division, ready to hold this small town, or larger town I suppose. I'm not entirely sure, I just know that this lies in the Lorraine Alsace region, which is somewhere near the German border. And here we have rejfor, Stürmann rejfor of the, 9th SS Panzer Division, ready to hold back the Americans alongside his friend from the 80th. Let's see how this goes, shall we? And we also have a Kettenkrad out, which is certainly the more used thing. You'll see the Schwimmwagen being a bit more of a minority. And we see a weapon support center going up for pontan1ke and a barracks going up for Smallfrizl. This usually being, yes, one will try to focus mostly on infantry while the other goes for the support. This can work out, but of course if there is lack of communication or generally one side isn't doing too well, then it can easily become a hindrance, since one player can easily be focused on while the other is just standing around with all his heavy weapons and not really able to make much of a move. And so that should be something that's kept in notice. And we see riflemen on the way alongside something which I bet is going to be a heavy machine gun, since that is the usual thing. Engineers scurrying out to secure the nearby areas, and we see the Wehrmacht quarters have gone up. And we also see that rejfor has gone for a double Kettenkrad to start, but is forced to pull back since they can't fight. Only now getting an infantry team of Panzer Grenadiers to take the fight to the Allies. And yes, indeed, as I predicted, heavy machine gun team probably going to seize this building and fill it up with heavy machine guns. And in south we see the pioneers moving out, going to secure this area. Engineers encountering the pioneers. Small firefight breaking out as submachine guns fire across this small area. Second pioneer team though not moving in to support this, though perhaps not the best idea, but the engineers do seem to be off in a worse position. And we see indeed heavy machine gun setting up here. Panzer Grenadiers and Kettenkrad securing the northern half. And we see a heavy machine gun going out from funkymonkey, not necessarily the best idea. Again, if you go heavy support, that means the other player is going to have to do all the fighting, which again, if poor communication or something else, means he'll be cut off and focused on. And we see the heavy machine gun team taking this building to cover this approach, and of course the northern approach. And the engineers are certainly in a poor position against the heavy machine gun and will probably have to pull back. And we hear gunfire from here. Panzer Grenadiers having seized this building with a lot of windows and taking the fight to this building, but not really going to do much. In fact, only firing off on these engineers, not able to do much against the team in there, it seems. Although a bit now, and for some reason pulling out completely despite probably having the advantage. They're getting suppressed, and already one Panzer Grenadier down and a full retreat, while engineers are seizing this northern area since there were no Panzer Grenadiers to actually support them. Bit of a poor move, and we see Panzer Grenadiers standing around here in the graveyard. Not too good, and we see Smallfrizl's riflemen hanging around in the middle, not moving south to perhaps try something there. Possibly now moving north. A bit too passive for my taste, in particular as the Americans. But at the same time, I do think his opponent's behavior does enable this to a certain degree. In the south, we see funkymonkey continuing to just play defensively, laying down bunkers. Mortar team trying to set up, but coming in from the wrong angle and getting heavily suppressed. And we see another MG42 team. This is really bad. I'd say he has no infantry, is only sitting down here, and already, for example, looking at pontan1ke, he already has something to support his teammate, allowing him to also focus exclusively on rejfor, who is currently in a bit of trouble as riflemen are moving in from all sides, and he does not have sufficient Panzer Grenadiers to hold back all the riflemen. Pioneers now getting suppressed. Riflemen moving in to actually support pontan1ke's attempt at the south. Probably going to see an empty bunker from that one. Further firing going on in the north. Riflemen moving in from several angles. Wounded engineers hanging out in the back, and we see incendiary grenades going off, hitting the riflemen, catching some in the flames who are not moving away. Not sure why, but one rifleman has already caught fire. Another one going down, as well as a third is shot by the Panzer Grenadiers. The Panzer Grenadiers decisively winning this fight. Slow movement in here. We see another MG42 sitting up here. And we see the American troops of pontan1ke setting up for an attack. We see the MG bunker and MG42 setting up to protect this approach. Certainly nice, but if, say, someone were to, for example, use this mortar to lay down some smoke, it could very easily end badly for the Germans, but apparently pontan1ke has never heard of smoke. Instead pulling his mortar back and forth a bit, not sure why. Engineers hanging around in the center. We see a sniper as well, uncloaked though, perhaps not the best idea. Not much going on. The German Panzer Grenadiers have so far managed to hold on to the north, it seems. Riflemen pulling back and being reinforced. We see BARs going out for Smallfrizl's Baker Company troops, while the support weapons are having a go at it. Mortar rounds perhaps raining in on either this building or the bunker. Bunker seems to be the target of the mortar rounds, but so far not a single hit. Engineers proceeding to lay down mines, and so far not a lot going on. It's so far the only real activity seems to be from rejfor, who does seem to be seizing territory from the north, but still nothing overt, no larger movements. And of course funkymonkey is just being penned in here and not really doing anything at all. Finally getting a Volksgrenadier team, well, that is it, and setting up a Krieg barracks and a motorcycle, but again nothing to actually fight, and currently not really putting out any pressure on the enemy, leaving rejfor to do most of the fighting. Now we see riflemen moving in on an unfortunate Kettenkrad, which quickly cloaks, meaning rejfor has gone for Luftwaffe, which is probably the most commonly used Panzer Elite doctrine, as it does provide most active assets. The Scorched Earth certainly being one of the more passive, and Tank Destroyer being a bit too focused on, well, tank destruction. We see Volksgrenadiers moving in for some reason, standing up right in front of a building. Sniper fire taking out one Volksgrenadier. Headshot, cap flying off, and we see mortar fire going in on the Volksgun as well, leaving only one to get away while the rest are either dead, forcefully pushed through the fence, or one wounded, screaming in pain. We see no counter artillery fire from the Germans, who just seem interested in just holding back, not really doing anything. rejfor also seems to have lost the nerve, not putting forwards, since he could actually, via scouting, actually figure out there's not much there, but apparently just hangs back. He lacks the aggressive spirit needed for the Panzer Elite, it seems, trying to play defensive as well instead of, well, use the fact that, again, other side it's also a bit impaired in terms of player numbers. Looks like the two Americans are completely focusing up on funkymonkeys, rather defensive lines, and of course not able to do anything to actually react. Trier center up, and we also see a motor pool up for pontan1ke, meaning armored cars most likely to exploit all of this. We also see a mortar half track, probably expecting something, but of course not what, and not bothering to actually do any reconnaissance, and noting that for the most part nothing has been there. But we see pontan1ke has gone airborne, which is also what is normally used with the weapon support center starts in 2 vs 2 games, so he can actually just call in infantry wherever he wants. Airborne can be quite lethal, and they do have a few nasty advantages, I do believe. But we see further fighting there, and funkymonkey just moving in like Goliath straight at the enemy, apparently intent on knocking out the mortar team, completely ignoring the infantry there. Bad move and a complete waste of 125 munitions. Could have worked if it was used properly. Instead he just gave away munitions, and we see the MG42s holding back the engineers, but certainly also giving away the positions. Finally some movement from rejfor as he takes the center, but is now forced back by a heavy machine gun team which has actually been moved there. And we see Airborne having been equipped with the recoilless rifles to deal with any Panzer Elite vehicles or light armor. Mortar being called in to bombard the position, incendiary rounds going off, burning the... No, it doesn't actually. It just manages to completely miss the machine gun team, heading everywhere else with fire on that. That's a bit odd, though the mortar team moves right into the fire and burns to death, quite tragically really. But manages to survive, but is forced to pull back. Airborne now moving in, and also riflemen now taking mortar fire as well. Not really much of a concerted effort. And we see a flak filling going up for rejfor. Can be useful certainly, but trouble is they are much too vulnerable. A single artillery shell or enough infantry, and it quickly becomes lost and can even easily fall into enemy hands. So at this moment I'd be a bit careful about it, and while I do use it sometimes, it's quite rare. Really, it just isn't worth the cost. Further fighting going on in the center, and funkymonkey's defenses are closely being torn apart, dismantled by the efforts of pontan1ke, who's now moving in his armored car as well, dealing with the machine gun team. And funkymonkey actually has no anti-tank assets, even though he probably has for some time has had access to packs. Bad move, funkymonkey just seemingly doing all the wrong things you can do in a team game, sitting only for himself, not actually being able to do a lot of movement, and not getting anti-tank assets at first possible opportunity. So there you have it. Now the south is lost, leaving rejfor with most of the things. Of course, he probably could have helped if he had himself applied some further pressure, for example here in the north, which again was for the most